any pictures or any information whatsoever that relates to the Erosa Hotel in Rochdale, Lacy Green Bed and Breakfast. I believe, it was run by, let's see what I've got. I'd said Barry and his daughter because we changed names, obviously, in the book. What was it called? It's the Lacy Green Bed and Breakfast. It was just round the corner from a park, and there was a school literally a road opposite. And it was absolutely stunning. I'll come back to that. But thirdly, any details on the Wizard Caravan site, Nether Alderley Edge in Winslow, any pictures, anything to do with the history of the place. I know they used to have a booklet because it's right by where Alderley Edge Caves was with the little cheese shop. I would love anything you could provide. Send it to me. Instagram, Tracie_Rose_daily, or type in hashtag Tracie Daily Books. You're going to find me online. Yeah, do that. That would be absolutely epic. That would make my month if you could do that. Thank you. Let's carry on with chapter 16. The first quarter had a patio large enough to easily fit 3 trucks on it, and then a pond to the right, surrounded by flat, well-maintained grass and flowers. The pond consistently held frogs. Directly behind that was some gnarly old trees and twisted paths. I'd spent as much time as I could up there. I'd sit pretended I owned it, and that one day I'd build my own hut in that garden. My room was also Caroline's room. The white doors were clean. Single beds in our room were well kept, and it even had a television in the room, carpeted throughout, and had large windows to the left of my bed, looking out over the magnificent garden. I was in heaven, or as close as I could be without Nan and Alan, who always seemed to be in my mind. Mum's room was directly opposite and smaller, but still had a good size, with a double bed and dressing table that Mum had a photograph on a picture frame. We had full run of the hotel and garden until 6 p.m, when we had to be in our rooms, but it was great. I can't remember what Mum's photo was of, but I do remember going to her room. She showed me the picture. She took the back off of it. Behind the picture was a newspaper clipping. She wanted me to know what was on it. She told me to keep it secret. He doesn't know I have this. It means a lot to me. You should know it's here, she said. I was just happy Mum wanted to share a secret with me. I knew Wenzel wouldn't be aware. Everyone needed secrets, especially from him. It may sound simplistic, but being a bed and breakfast, 2 things were guaranteed to us. A nice, clean, warm bed and a wonderful, warm breakfast. The 2 things that before I didn't much care for. However, after living in a car on off for God knows how long, these were luxuries, and I took full advantage of them. It was always a full English breakfast, and Wenzel would always tell the same joke every morning without fail. Is this bacon or a crack in the plate, Barry? Wenzel was one of those people with no sense of humour who thought they were extremely funny. And to be fair to him, if you hadn't lived with him, you'd think he was a diamond. However, we'd already heard all his lines many, many times, and it just becomes routine. We laughed as we had to. Laughed is probably too strong a term. Mum would ignore him until he said, "That's funny," or "no sense of humour, some people." Then she'd flash him the half-second smile, or a "sorry," with no enthusiasm behind it. The kids would just tut a short laugh. We had to humour him. His family. His rules. Barry was brilliant with the kids. He insisted we went outside whenever we wanted. Wenzel had started buying sweets when he went out, and didn't hurt us once here. He would give us packets of Skittles or Opal fruits, and Caroline, Jonathan, and me would share them out. I was quite mean as a child. I remember giving them colours that they didn't like, because then they would trade me 2 of theirs for one of mine that they did like. I remember feeling especially bad one day after one of these sweet-sharing moments, when Jonathan approached me in the garden. His fair hair and squint both pointing in the same direction. He always looked cute and not odd. Some people, their squint makes them more handsome. He was one of them. I remember the sun shining off his little red coat and blue-rimmed glasses. He handed me his sweets. "These are for you. I know you collect them," he said, dropping them into my hand. Told him I'd trade them 2 for 1 and handed them back. "No, you have them. It's okay. I'm not hungry," he replied. placed them on the little wall and ran off to play. I was turning into Wenzel. I hated myself and I felt guilty. Suddenly the sun didn't matter anymore. The garden was unimportant. Caroline and Jonathan were playing in the garden. Instead of being part of it, just enjoying the game like they were, I was constantly looking for my next leverage, constantly looking over my shoulder for trouble, waiting to run, hide, respond. More than this, I didn't like me. Later, Wenzel got the bags out of the car. Jonathan and I played with the action figures and an old Star Wars ship. For once we had fun. Nobody controlled anyone. Just me and Jonathan, brother to brother, as equals. Sandy was the cleaner's name. She was a nice lady who lived in Winslow. She'd always talk to us and have a clean bed ready. Things that, if I'm honest, Wenzel nor Mom did much of. They didn't take time to talk a lot. Our Mom only did when we went to her with a problem. Don't get me wrong, I love my Mom. She would play with us when we were in Macclesfield. But elsewhere, she either didn't or she wasn't allowed to. So it was nice when Sandy would smile and ask how we were. Jonathan and I had been playing so long, Wenzel came into the bedroom and said, "Right, time for bed." Jonathan looked at me, and I looked at him. Fuck it, what's the worst that can happen, I thought. 5 more minutes? I asked. Wenzel looked back at who I presume was Bernie standing in the hall. Okay, 5 minutes only, he said, closing the door. He must have forgot about us, because we played well into the darkness. I'd stay awake at night and watch Prisoner Cell Block H and Married with Children like I had with Nan. I had to be careful, though. As soon as I heard a door creak or someone step on the landing, I'd shut the TV off and pretend to be asleep. He never caught me, but it came close one night. I hadn't heard his bedroom door open, but I did hear my door handle slide down. I clicked the TV off and closed my eyes. I knew not to be sat up. If I was, he'd know I'd watched TV. So to minimise a movement, I lay my head on the pillow and watched TV at an angle. He walked in and closed the door. "I know you're awake," he said, turning the TV from standby to off, so I couldn't use the remote. Then I heard him walk to the door, and it opened and closed. I hadn't heard his footsteps on the other side. I counted to 200 slowly in my head to be certain. About halfway through my second 100, the door opened, and then I heard him leave, cross the landing and go into his room. I made a big show of sighing and turning over in my sleep just in case he was still in the room. I scanned it, eyes open just a slit as I moved over. Shit, that was close. Caroline and I had been playing in the garden that day, climbing trees. Neither of us were tired. We'd both gone to the park and had chips and sausage with Wenzel, and been sent to bed as usual. I'd waited to hear Caroline's bleeping change, and then flicked the TV on. I waited for Prisoner Cell Block H to start. I wasn't thinking about anything in particular. I was just watching Prisoner Cell Block H and listening for Wenzel's footsteps or the door to go. I heard neither. My bedroom door opened, and on this night I was sat up in bed. Unusual for me, but I remember it clearly, because I'd usually want to hide and pretend to be asleep. This night, I didn't. The door opened, and I had an amazing feeling of ease. Total peace. My Nan, Pat, stood there, plain as day. Very solid, but not solid as a physical person. I could just about see through her, but all of her features were visible from head to toe. She wore the same sandals she'd done in life. She smiled, waved her arm to me, and in that second I knew I was going to be okay. I felt great. Then she vanished. She was just gone. Perhaps a second later, and the door closed. I looked at the door for maybe 5 seconds, and then logic hit me. If Caroline had seen her too, I had proof. I looked at her, fast asleep. I looked to the TV, and Prisoner Cell Block H was still on. She turned up during her favourite programme, I thought. I smiled. I knew I had to tell Mum in the morning, and she'd be so excited. Pat's alive. Not here, but alive somewhere. I fell asleep about an hour later, more content than I'd felt in over a year. I did tell Mum. I remember clearly sitting on the bed beside her, telling me how she'd heard Pat on the landing in Macclesfield, and that she'd seen her outside the bedroom window a few nights after she'd passed. Mum went on a big talk about ghosts being people, but I don't remember all of it. I was only interested in two things. Why can't I see her all the time? And when can I see her again? I was thinking if I can see her, I can live with her. But Mum said it doesn't work like that. I looked for Pat all day in the garden. I found another garden. Maybe she got lost looking for me and had gone there. So I spent the day up a tree, where I could clearly see both gardens. That night I waited until Bernie, or Wenzel, closed our bedroom curtains, and then sat with the TV off looking at the door. Caroline was already asleep. "They've gone now. You can come in," I said in my head. Nothing happened. I tried a few times, and then realised she couldn't hear me, because I was talking in my head. I repeated, "They've gone now. You can come in," this time loud enough for everyone in the room to hear me. Nothing happened. I lay on the bed willing that door to open. It didn't. I lay on the bed ear off. Then it hit me. Maybe she can only turn up during Prisoner's Hobble Cage. So I turned that on, but didn't watch it. My eyes were on the door. I repeated this every night. And every night, Nan didn't turn up. Chapter 17. Wenzels got quite chatty with Sandy, a good-looking woman with a very bubbly personality. I noticed he wasn't at the breakfast table a few mornings. Then when he was, he didn't make the bacon joke, and Mum looked more agitated than usual, even more so when Wenzels spoke about Sandy. On one occasion, Mum slammed her fork down hard and said, "Not in front of the kids." I can't hear their discussion from memory. However, I remember the tension vividly. I can see the body language between them both of them. Bernie wanted to leave at worst, and have a peaceful life at best. Wenzel wanted to reach across the table and slap her, but he couldn't, because Barry was there. The next morning I was awoken, and had to get ready for school. My first school since Ash Grove Primary School. For the little I'd gone, I'd hated it. I went because I had to. Lacey Green had a big, long, open playground which was beautifully cut at the back. I was introduced to a lady teacher in the hall whose name I can't remember. She was pleasant, though, as I looked round at something moving at a large box beside me. "Guinea pigs," she said. "Do you like them?" she asked. I'd never seen one before. I was amazed. "Pig?" I asked, then jumped up next to Wenzel. I'd forgot to wait for the nod to speak in my excitement. I waited to be hit. "It's like a big gerbil," Wenzel said. "Not a pig," he added, laughing. We were a normal family, for the teacher's benefit. Gerbil. What happened to Arnie? I wondered. I guess he was in Macclesfield alone for all this time. I was introduced to my class, and they all seemed more quiet and calm than the kids in Ash Grove Primary School. I could like it here, I thought. They had sums and words on big posters on the walls. I knew all of the words, but I knew none of the sums. Nan had taught me to read from an early age. I had spent countless hours reading make-a-choice books under my bed at Bernie's. I was standing in the playground one lunchtime alone, watching the other pupils. I remember wearing a coat with a fluffy hood and an orange interior. It was ripped in many places. I wore it because Wenzel told me to take it, even though it was roasting outside. I noticed the other children didn't play like other children. They mostly stood around talking. The people I did overhear talking appeared distant, and they spoke strangely. I was in a classroom. We'd been given some basic words, like with and then, to put into a word search, and we had to create the word search ourselves. I was bored stupid, totally didn't think the teacher would notice. So I did the word search, and included a few choice words of my own, including dickhead and bastard, which were longer than A words we'd been given to use. I was called up, but not because I was in trouble. I'd later find out Wenzel had been questioned as to why none of us were in a school, so he got us into the closest one, a school for disabled children. I came home to Wenzel and Barry having a chat in the kitchen. Wenzel wasn't happy, but it looked like he'd been defeated. I went through my head to see what I'd done wrong. Perhaps it was playing snap with Brian's daughter, or when Brian's daughter slept in Caroline's bed, I had talked about what was down our trousers. If it was that, I was in trouble. Wenzel walked past me like I didn't exist. I went to my room and he was chatting with Sandy. His demeanour had totally transformed. Downstairs he was downtrodden like he'd lost money. He was sad, but not angry. Upstairs he was all interactive body language and smiles like he was fun. Upstairs I still didn't exist. and I was more than cool with that. No existing